Today's tale will awaken your soul. Therefore, we request you to listen to this story till the very end. The story begins on a cold morning. The rays of the sun had not yet properly touched the earth. The village's most dedicated female nurse, Amora Okafor, receives a serious report. She is informed that in a distant village, a young man has been accused of poisoning his own mother and is now gravely ill himself, needing immediate medical attention. As soon as Amora hears this on the hospital radio, she gets into the medical transport vehicle and heads towards the scene. It was her first year in nursing service, but through her compassion and quick thinking, she had earned the respect of the entire hospital. She was known as determined, fair, and strictly devoted to the ethics of healing. When she reaches the village, the scene there was troubling. A middle-aged woman lay on the ground with signs of poisoning, already deceased. Sitting next to her was a young man around 21 to 22 years old who was holding a small container of herbs in his hand, himself showing symptoms of the same poison. "Put the container down and let me help you. You need medical attention immediately." The young man, without any protest, dropped the container to the ground and sat silently with his head lowered. Amora began treating his symptoms and took him to the hospital. The young man's name was Kofi Mensah. There was no fear or remorse in his eyes, as if what was meant to happen had already happened. At the hospital, he was kept in isolation for several hours. Amora waited for the toxicology report and confirmation of the village elder's investigation. Kofi was not silent. He did not give any justification in his favor, nor did he ask any questions. After some time, news came that after examining the preliminary evidence, the village elders and regional authorities had declared Kofi guilty of matricide and condemned him to death. However, under the tribe's law, before the date of execution, a period of 2 months is given for the soul to make peace. This time is allotted for final prayers and last wish fulfillment. Kofi was brought back to the same hospital where Amora was posted. He was kept in a separate room where there was no monitoring equipment. Only a small window was there from which a little light used to come in. A few days later, a woman came to the hospital crying and said that someone had stolen her healing herbs and medicines. Amora immediately sent her colleagues and told them to thoroughly search the woman's home. She herself stayed at the hospital because Kofi needed constant medical attention for his deteriorating condition. A while later, when she went to check on Kofi, she saw he was staring at the window with a fixed gaze. "Did this verdict not cause you any pain? Your mother is no longer in this world, and you haven't even mentioned any reason for what happened." Kofi smiled faintly and looked at her. There was no hatred or mockery on his face. Rather, there was a strange calmness. Amora composed herself and ended the conversation right there. Just then, she received a message. The theft complaint was false, and the herbs had actually been taken by the woman's son for treatment. The matter was resolved there, and Amora returned to Kofi again. This time, she brought him a cup of medicinal tea. "You have 2 months' time. If you have any last wish, you can tell us. According to our traditions, a condemned person's last wish is fulfilled before execution. My last wish is that as long as I live, every night I want to spend time with a healing woman who has never known a man." Amora's face became stern for a moment. She could have immediately scolded him if she wanted to, but she restrained herself. "This is not a normal wish. We cannot forcibly send any woman to you." "Then why not you? You are also unmarried and the tradition says the last wish must be fulfilled." A heat spread within Amora, but she did not express her anger, nor did she give him any reply. "I will think about it." That night, Amora could not sleep peacefully. Her mind was filled with many questions and doubts. Can a person's last wish go beyond moral limits? Does she have to strike a balance between her duty and humanity? The night was getting deeper, and Kofi's faint smile kept flashing in front of her eyes again and again. The next morning, Amora Okafor was sitting at her desk thinking. She hadn't been able to sleep the entire night. Kofi's words kept circling in her mind, "Why not you?" This line was spinning in her head again and again. On one side was her inner humanity, which was saying that perhaps Kofi really was alone and helpless, and on the other side was her duty, which was stopping her from fulfilling his wish. She did not inform any of her seniors about this matter, but she had decided that she would get to the bottom of this incident. In the following days, Amara spoke to Kofi several times. He always twisted his words, but each time he would say something wise. Sometimes he would speak about his mother, sometimes about the villagers, and sometimes he would say he accepted this punishment. Again, at times he would say, "My mother comes in my dreams every night." One night, Amara was alone in the ward. The other nurses had gone to attend an emergency in another village. The sound of rain could be heard and the flashes of lightning were breaking the silence spread over the hospital courtyard. Amara went near Kofi's room. She felt that perhaps he would say something new today. She stood silently for a moment staring at him. He was lying down with his eyes closed, but his face looked calm. "Do you remember your mother?" "Every day, but now nothing matters." "Did you really?" "No, but even if I say it, what's the point? No one will listen. Everyone has already assumed that I'm guilty." His voice carried no emotion or justification. Rather, there was just a tired layer of reality. Amara's eyes filled with tears. She asked herself, have I treated this case as just an ordinary case? Have I become a part of that crowd that simply assumes a person to be guilty? But now there was little time left. If Kofi's words were true, then it had to be proven. The next day, Amara began searching through the medical documents. She re-examined the village toxicology report, the mother's belongings, the herb samples, everything. Some unclear clues caught her eye. Some things were not adding up. The herbs that had poisoned Kofi's mother were not native to their region but were known to be sold by an influential healer in the village who had previously been caught in illegal medicine trading cases. Amara began a secret investigation against that person. Meanwhile, Kofi was still holding on to his last wish. "Don't you want anything else?" "No, because I have no more expectations from life. But I have fallen in love with you. I have never seen a woman as honest and compassionate as you." Amara realized that inside Kofi, there still remained an innocent man who had been turned to stone by circumstances. One night when everything around was silent, Amara crossed her boundaries, took off her nursing uniform, wore a traditional dress and went to Kofi. There was no lust in her eyes. Rather, there was trust. She sat beside Kofi, listened to his words, saw him as a human being. There was no force, no compulsion, only the silence between two people and some incomplete emotions. In the morning, for the first time, light was seen in Kofi's eyes. "If you believe in my story, then give me a chance to prove my innocence. Now this is my fight." Amara now had two paths in front of her: to ignore the statement of an accused like everyone else and let him face the death penalty for a crime he perhaps didn't commit, or to bring out the truth with all her strength and honesty, even if for that she had to fight against her own village system. Information from the village was slowly coming to light from the secret investigation Amara had started. It was found that Kofi's mother had filed a complaint against the influential healer Babatune for selling dangerous herbs. That evening, Babatune had been seen near Kofi's mother's house. Amara took this case personally. She informed the head doctor that she wanted to conduct a final investigation before the execution. At first she was mocked, but when she filed a strong case and presented it before the village elders, she was given 15 days. If within that time she could prove Kofi's innocence, then the case would be reopened. During this time, Kofi became somewhat hopeful, but he remained silent. "Even if you can't do it, thank you. Because of you, I was able to feel like a human for a few days. Your truth is my test. I will not give up." Amara went to the village and quietly spoke to many people. Many witnesses were afraid. But an old healer, a neighbor of Kofi's mother, finally spoke the truth. Babatune's men had entered the house at night and poisoned Kofi's mother. Kofi had returned home and chased away the attackers, but by then his mother had already consumed the poisoned drink. He then drank from the same cup in grief, which is why he too fell ill. She had not said this earlier because Barbatoon's men had threatened her. Amora recorded her statement, cross-checked it with the medical report, and collected evidence of the herb's origin. All the evidence showed that Kofi was innocent. Amora applied to the village council for reinvestigation. A hearing was held. The witnesses were called. The evidence was presented. Barbatoon was arrested. The case was discussed throughout the region. Finally, the council overturned the previous verdict. Kofi was released. When Kofi came out of the council hut, he quietly came to Amora and said, "You gave me back my life." The fight for justice doesn't happen only in the council. It also happens between the mind and the conscience. A few months later, they were often seen together. Amora made no marriage announcement. Kofi made no statement. But those who saw them found respect and peace in their eyes for each other. The story of a patient and a nurse, which had started from a strange desire, had now taken the shape of a relationship built on trust, struggle, and honesty. The story does not end here. It only holds a mirror to a society where not every accused may be guilty. Sometimes the path to justice must pass through human emotions as well. Friends, this is the moral of our tale. Truth and justice may sometimes be hidden, but with courage and compassion, they will always find their way to light. Never judge someone by what others say, for every person deserves to be heard. If you enjoyed this story, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more inspiring tales. Your support means the world to us, and we can't wait to bring you more stories that touch the heart and inspire positive change. See you in the next video.